I'm Vivek Rao. I'm co-founder and CEO of Foundation AI. There's going to be a lot of similarities because I will talk very, very fast as well. I'll try to be funny, not as funny. And we do similar work where it is displacing a lot of manual work involved with uh, law firms, a lot of manual processes. So, starting point, Foundation AI, what do we do? We're like the least sexy AI company here. Or at least the problem we solve is not a very sexy problem. We are pretty much the bridge between all of the ways that documents come into a law firm, and that is physical mail, that's emails, all the ways they come into a law firm, and the place where work gets done, which is oftentimes the practice management system. And so, what we do is we integrate with all those sources of documents. That's scanners, that's centralized email boxes, that's all the individual email boxes for all the people that work at a law firm, including all the paralegals, case managers, and so on. eFax, believe it or not, still a big source of documents, scanners, all of that. Our software automatically ingests those documents and then profiles and matches them to the right matter, which is more complex than you'd think when it comes to high volume litigation firms, classifies those documents, and then based on those classifications, executes document driven tasks. And those things can be summarizing documents, naming them and saving them to the right folder, data entry and data extraction, triggering workflows inside the practice management systems, and so on. And so we are integrated with a lot of practice management systems, including Litify, Filevine, Smart Advocate, Neos, Clio, a bunch of the names that you hear here. And we automate all of this manual work for these law firms. We've been doing it for about almost 6 years, since 2020, and we do it for many of the largest injury litigation firms in the country, including the largest PI firm, the largest SSD firm, the largest Veterans Affairs firm, and the largest workers' compensation firm in the nation, as well as just here's a sprinkling of them. But most people, most of you in the states that you're in, see billboards or listen to jingles of customers that we process all their documents. So pretty decent depth across the country, automating this manual work. So this is also for me a strange pitch because I'm not pitching most of you on buying my software, nor am I raising money. So I'll regale you with tales of how we got to where we are and where I think we're going. So starting point, don't let my brown skin and Indianness fool you. I am not a computer programmer. I didn't build any of this. I actually started my career graduating from law school in 2009 and started actually at an AM law firm doing capital markets and real estate finance. But come 2010, there was no more capital markets for real estate finance. So I ended up going back to Los Angeles and working with a number of startups. But I needed to find a day job that paid the bills that wouldn't require me to work too hard. And I found that in workers' compensation defense. In California, this is super high volume. I know we have some work comp defense lawyers here. Super high volume, tons of documents coming into a law firm. And, we're doing this, but meanwhile, I'm still working with startups. One of the startups that I ended up becoming general counsel for is called Enlightix. It was healthcare AI. And this was the first time that I saw AI at all. This is about 2016 that we're looking at this. And, I'm looking at this high volume litigation firm, and I'm also looking at AI and healthcare at the same time. And where this company, Enlightix, was building, natural language processing systems that could, derive ICD-10 codes from clinical free text and computer vision models that could detect diabetic retinopathy from fundoscopic images, at the law firm, we had 20 people in our mailroom. It was a revolving door of temps and people sitting there, and all of them, every document that came in at our firm, we would get about 6,000 individual documents a day through all those various channels. Every one of them required someone to go in the system and figure out what matter it was. And at one point, I had 4 cases that were all Juan Ramirez versus Costco. The firm had 6 at the same time. So figure out which one it goes into. They're wrong most of the time. Figure out what it was based on the type of document. Is it a medical or is it a medical legal? And based on that, you give it a different naming convention. If it's a medical record, it might be, the data service, the type of report, the doctor name. And then you're also tasking based on what type of document this is. So if it's a motion, you might be sending it to the handling attorney, certain discovery documents to the paralegal, medical records might go to different people. And so this long convoluted process, when done correctly, would often take days from a document coming in, if it was physical mail, and getting stamped to it actually getting in front of the attorney who needed to see it. And it was done wrong all the time. Stuff would go into the wrong folder. It would be named incorrectly. They would not alert you when stuff came into your file. It was just an absolute mess. And when I was talking to our insurance customers, it was equally a mess for them there. So we ended up selling the healthcare AI company in 2017. And after the founders kind of did their little turn there, they still had a non-compete in healthcare. And the much smarter Indian guys that did the technology building convinced them that this was something that the technology they had previously built could be useful for. And so we started Foundation AI in 2019, really to solve this and other problems. And so we've been doing it for a while, like I said before, and do it for a number of the largest, injury litigation, but also just high volume litigation firms in the country. So that's the origin story of how we got here. It's 2025 now, and obviously AI has come a long way. And so what I think about when I think about this stuff is there's so much, and I'm sure you've seen over the last few days about what AI can supposedly do and all the things that it's going to do. And I think I've spent my time being a lawyer who now, owns a software business or is the CEO of one, thinking of, what's the stuff that AI should be doing for law firms? What drives actual value for law firms? And so, there's a quote here that I think is interesting. It obviously deals more with consumer tech, but I think the concept really does apply to how we think about our business and the kinds of things that we are solving for law firms. And like I said in the beginning, maybe not the sexiest stuff, but I'm of the opinion, just like people don't necessarily want AI to, draw pictures for, well, in fairness, I have AI drawing all kinds of pictures for me for my children, but, AI that can do things ideally that people either are not good at doing, don't want to do. If you got both, that's even better. And that the end consumer of the product doesn't care whether a person did it or not. There are people building AI for, to talk to their customers, and people building AI for this and that. And like, I'm pretty tech forward, but I'm the first guy that when I call and they put a clanker on the phone, which is like the slang Gen Z term for like a bot, and it starts like, I'm just the guy like, give me a person, like over and over. And I think there are certain things that people want to deal with people, especially in the space we operate in with law firms, and things that they actually just want it done efficiently and don't care. And we focus our time and energy on the stuff that people are not good at doing, do not want to do, and frankly, in 2025, shouldn't be doing anymore. Like naming documents, saving documents, sorting documents, and all of this manual work similar to what you were talking about, that still happens in law firms across the country. And so because people don't want to do this work, but it is so important, law firms come up with all sorts of, did I go backwards? Convoluted processes of how they get this done. So this is like an example of a workflow in a small law firm where if you ask the managing partner, like, how does this work, right now? They might say, oh, my receptionist handles all of it. But when you unpack it, you've got these crazy workflows where the receptionist might look at things and figure out maybe what matter is, and they drop it at someone else's desk who's a legal assistant who has lots of other things they could be doing. And that person then is sorting it and naming it. And it goes to a third person to do data entry, like all these crazy flows. And in a larger law firm, even crazier flows. And most of the time, even with all these cumbersome, convoluted processes they put in, they're now receiving the majority of their documents in emails to individuals in the firm, right? And this stuff really applies, again, for those of you in the am law world, maybe not as much as to those of you who deal with like plaintiff law firms and things, or consumer-facing law firms. But then you've got like hundreds of staff members who are now just individual vectors for failure that are each receiving documents. And if you could convince an attorney to actually save and name something in the right way, which you won't be able to do that, and they won't do it even if they tell you they will, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're building some of this downstream automation and these other things in the modern practice management systems. That requires the entry point of the documents in to be uniform. Like, so the amount of steps necessary at the intake level of a document to effectuate all of the automation and a bunch of the AI work that goes downstream is a lot. It has to be named the same way, put in the right folder, tagged the right way, and all these various things. And if any of those, so companies will invest in a bunch of that stuff and then wonder why it's not working. And it's because the first mile is still broken by people that aren't doing it. And a lot of that now is captured through those individual emails. So that's the gist of what we do with our software now. All of that stuff just comes straight into our software, where our software manages that process. Human in the loop component, the humans are our law firm clients. So the people doing this now, either much less of them, or a person who was spending hours and hours of their day, or full-time now spends minutes of their day doing this function of validation. And then all of their workflows, all their best practices, all of the tagging, all the things they want done just get done at scale. And that's how it works. We've done pretty well over the last few years as far as growth. This is like we're over 200 plus customers. 2020, when we first launched the law firm product, we had like 3 in work comp. Obviously, COVID happened, and that happened. So what this shows is we started in California work comp, and we kind of grew there to prove the pain point and the problem statement, and that it could expand. We then expanded out around 2023 into what I'll call injury litigation. So personal injury, and stuff outside of California work comp. That's obviously grown significantly. And at this point now, we have customers in all 50 states, including all the way from some of the largest down to small and mid-sized firms. We automate this process. Going forward, that little gray box of legal expansion that has gotten a little bigger in 25 is going to get considerably bigger. I think at this point now, this same workflow applies to lots of other practice areas, and I'm sure some of you can think of those, like immigration, like bankruptcy, like all these other consumer-facing law, and then also the problem statements of even the AM laws and larger law that just are going to be building more technology and shouldn't be doing this stuff any longer manually, and we will be there to ensure they don't. I think I'm over time, so thank you.